According to Gallup, there is a 70% variance in team employee engagement that can be explained by one factor alone. Do you know what that is?
Food.
Friday afternoon meetings.
Absolutely not. Okay, let me just tell you guys are off. The answer is managers.
Okay.
It's managers.
What you're saying is,
Yes.
Okay, tell us what you're going to talk about. But managers are the core fundamental piece of being culture keepers,
Yes.
culture carriers with the employees, and then with the leadership. They're really critical to it. So what do you want us to talk about? I'm sorry.
Right. So I want to talk about, because here's my premise, and that what is true is everyone, whether it is their title in their job role or not, everyone is a manager to some degree. You're managing your work. You're managing your work relationships.
Managing yourself.
Exactly. You're managing yourself. So everyone has influence as a manager in that regard. So I want us to talk about some ways that we can be good managers, whether it's your job title or not. And then also, if someone doesn't have a good manager or overseer, what can they do to supplement those needs and that they have? So
You want to take it, John? You want me to jump on? What do you want to do?
I think let's start off with this conversation of, man, how do I lead when I'm not in charge?
right.
How do I manage in a way? So I think some important things, regardless of how many people you're responsible to serve or those that you work for or work with, it's important to know them, right? I need to know my people.
Yeah.
That means it helps me know which strength I need to bring to the table to be a
Right.
good complement in that way. When I know, when you've got a great manager, right? I remember someone said, John, spoil your team with consistency. Spoil your
that's a
team
great phrase.
with consistency.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because it lets them know just what do I need to be safe and secure to bring my best every day. Whenever there's a lot of variation, I don't exactly know that I'm safe or I'm secure in my role. I know how to meet expectations when there is a degree of
Are
consistency.
you saying that the safe and secure, the inconsistency is in the person showing up? The whole, like, who's going to show up today? Like,
That's
that
right.
kind of thing?
That's
That
right.
The consistency creates a place of security for the employees to go, we can always count on John to...
I think if you are leading when you're not in charge, knowing those elements of that manager are important. Helps them to
really good.
navigate that. Secondly, I would say is knowing how to complement that environment for certain projects. So raise your hand when you know, hey, guess what? That leader or that manager may not be able to be the best person for that job because nobody has all the gifts. Goal, don't have all the gifts.
Yeah.
It's important for you to be able to say, hey, I could take on that project. Advocate for yourself to say, that's a strength of mine. If they haven't delegated it to you, offer to be able to step in that role that shows this way of how do I lead when I'm not in charge, observing their strengths, observing their trends, their consistencies, inconsistencies, and then bringing your best in that because there is something that is a gift to the whole organization.
But what, Monica, what about a good manager? Like, so what, like John's talking about leading up, but let's talk about as a manager, what are attributes that cause them to excel? So the thing that says from Gallup, hey, 70, if you're engaged, 70% more will be engaged as well. What causes a manager to be like that? Like, what are those attributes?
Yeah, I think there's maybe two huge factors. One of them is they're connectors. They're connecting the values and the mission of the organization with the employee. So there's
it's
this
so good.
connecting piece. So that's huge, and I think that is one of the top two. The second one is kind of coming back to what John talks about in recognizing their strengths and really being able to flex and flow with the strengths of your team and the people around you.
Adaptability.
Adaptability,
That's good.
yes. And there's this thing that I talk about in one of my talks, The Sound of Culture, where I give the illustration that there's a New York City Philharmonic Orchestra conductor who was once asked, what is the toughest role to fill on your team or in your orchestra? And without hesitation, he said the second chair, second violinist, whatever, second fiddle.
Second fiddle.
Second fiddle.
The fiddles are filling up the orchestra.
And he explained why. He said the reason why is because it's easy to find that leader who will step out, play the solo, do their thing, and shine. What's hard to find is a leader who can harmonize, who can know instinctively and be present enough to go, this is my moment to come forward. All right, I need to come back and let other people shine right now. So there's that flexibility to work with other people's strengths and moments where they're growing, they're thriving, they're being challenged, but they're not being embarrassed by their weaknesses, and that element there. So those two things
good.
I think are the strongest factors in good managers.
Yeah, and that is an attribute of humility that people can say, I'm going to step back and let you shine, because there is something in our egos that are like, I want to be the solo, out front.
An orchestra full of solos is a whole lot of noise.
Whole lot of noise.
Yeah.
So, my son, who writes in our Ready, Set, Go, who will be talking about this and there, I can't wait to hear what he has to say, but he's had two distinct managers. Yeah. And really the thing you're talking about, the second one, and his two jobs that he's had, the second one has really created a place for him to have a sense of a willingness to apply himself, kind of take risks, and he always knows there's a support, there's a safety there, there's a sense of if it doesn't go well, she's got his back. Yeah. And that makes all the difference.
Right. So one of the issues that I find, because I've been, I've had managers, I've also been a manager and been in executive roles. And so one of the things that I've noticed is that people are not as thick-skinned often as we'd like them to be. And
so,
I've never heard that before. Tell me more.
So, a lot of times you can have a gentle reprimand or correction of direction with someone, and they take it very, very, very hard, and it's almost like it deflates not just their weakness, but their strengths, and it has kind of a reverse effect that we want. And so oftentimes that it's not that there's a bad manager, it's that we have to figure out how to manage our own emotions and our own mental health in those situations.
Yeah.
But where I'd like us to kind of end here is, what if someone does have a manager or overseer that is not strong, that they can't look to as a role model, and who is not helping connect the organization and not helping them in their strengths and grow? What is the advice to give to someone like that?
I think managers are tasked with the how, right? But there's an organization that exists for a why. So I think when we connect to a why, everyone in the organization can connect to the why. Everyone in the organization can help contribute to a what. The how is the part we don't always have control over. But what we can do is work with excellence towards that why, and allow ourselves not to grow resentful when the how doesn't reflect the why.
That's good.
That how will reflect the why in time. But my job, what I can control, is I'm going to work on our overall what with a why that allows me to be consistent until that how catches up. I think it's critical for us to be values-based shoppers for a job when you're going to get hired. Hey, if you don't connect with the values on day one, I promise you, it won't matter on day 17. It won't matter when you get the raise. It's never enough for just a job. We've got to connect to a why and values that ensure, hey, guess what? When those days that get long and they're not fun, am I still believing in what we're working toward, not the moment that I'm in?
I think the other thing that's just that people who have a manager that isn't what they hope they would be is they have to be really mindful of their words, because people can feel justified about starting to gossip, starting to go behind their manager and leader and say things, and oftentimes managing themselves to not say things that they feel they have the right to because they're not satisfied. Because I find regularly when people have a manager and they're here, right? I talk about this, and then when they get up here, they see things entirely different.
Right.
So they're very judgy and very critical and very hard on this person, very disappointed, and they have all these judgments about until they get up here and they go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize what all this person. And so then they start complaining about this person. It's just human nature to start that. But you know what? Those guys, and get critical that way. So I think the most important thing for a person who feels managed poorly is to watch their words and their attitude, because they'll self-sabotage and not even realize it.
That's good. So watch your words, kind of take ownership of the values and that connection yourself and put those things into practice. And I think that's can be for anyone and everyone, whether
agree.
you are a manager by title or you are an employee, but you have your own things to manage.